Hello and welcome to another episode of Interest.co's Of Interest podcast. I'm Gareth Vaughan. Our guest for this episode is Rick Jones. He's the New Zealand country head for accounting industry body CPA Australia. Rick's here to talk about the threat technology poses to the profession of accounting and the challenge of attracting young people to accounting in this day and age. Over the last 2.5 years, COVID-19 and more recently fears about inflation have sucked the oxygen out of the news. But prior to that, there was a lot of talk about what jobs and professions would be rendered obsolete by fast-evolving technology. Accounting has certainly been touted as one of the canaries in the coal mine on this, and despite the best efforts of COVID, these issues remain with us. Hi, Rick, and welcome to the Of Interest podcast. To kick this off, I want to take you back 5 years. So in 2017, Television New Zealand broadcast a series fronted by Nigel Latta called What's Next? In it, Latta said that thanks to the likes of automation and artificial intelligence, or AI, over the coming 20 years, the number of accountants in New Zealand was going to plummet from 17,669 to just 19, and people were going to be replaced by robots and algorithms. Now, I'm guessing you had a pretty strong response to this show at the time when this happened. What was the response you experienced?
Thanks, Gareth, for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, it feels like yesterday that show was on, and I remember watching it on a Sunday evening and then got to work on the Monday morning and had a couple of phone calls quite early on in the day from new members who had just joined CPA Australia as an accounting professional body member, and they referenced that program and they said, look, I'm not sure this is the right path for me because of a direct result of the Nigel Latta show. So it was really interesting that immediately there was a short-term response. And over the next week, there were probably 5 or 6 that I can recall, inquiries directly from either current members or people about to join as a result of that show and the fear that, you know, are they on the right path and will automation take over their role? So it was a really interesting response and yeah, it was a time, and obviously a lot's been said since on automation and technology and the future of accounting and work, but that was a really defining moment in it where people were genuinely worried about accounting as a viable profession.
And what's happened since? I mean, have there been accountants replaced by machines since then?
Look, it's interesting. It still gets talked about on a daily basis with employers and with the profession. So there are some roles that automation and software has taken over, but what we have seen is that a whole lot of new roles have been created. So, you know, the demand for accountants and accounting roles has never been greater, but the role of the accountant is evolving, and technology is actually an enabler. So where historically accountants are reporting and talking about reports and things that have happened in the past, we're finding that automation is happening, but it's allowing accountants and to become trusted business advisors and helping organisations plan ahead and move forward. So it has taken over some transactional roles, but it's actually opened up a whole lot of new roles for what were traditionally accounting is very much evolving, but it's opened up a lot of new opportunities, which is fantastic.
In terms of, I guess, the tasks or roles that technology has replaced, can you tell us a little bit about that? And then also, what are these new opportunities perhaps that it is creating?
Sure. So traditional transactional roles where, you know, you've got your likes of Xero and you've got artificial intelligence and transactional payroll roles and certain tax obligations and tax roles have been automated. And so that is freeing up roles. So those more sort of what you'd call traditional roles where, you had the stereotypical accountant sitting behind a desk looking at an Excel spreadsheet and looking at past performance. It's those sorts of roles where automation is now taking care of that. So, but what we're seeing now is roles where accountants are having to interpret data and what that means moving forward for an organisation. So they're looking at wider business opportunities and working with clients and using that data. A lot of the word data is used a huge amount, and so it's changing the skills that are required and evolving the skills. But you're looking more at trusted business advisors and advisory services. You're looking at data interpretation, data analysis, business partnering. So there's a lot around not only data but around soft skills, leadership, communication, advisory. Those sorts of skills are certainly risen to the top.
So would it be fair to say maybe some of the more mundane, repetitive, traditional tasks we think of, bookkeeping type things, are maybe not as you don't require a humans for all of that anymore, but perhaps some of the more interesting, fun parts of the profession are growing. Is that sort of what you're saying?
That's right. So that's what we are seeing. So it's allowing. So those certain. There's certainly very much a need still for bookkeepers and that human element, because you still need people to interpret and use that data. But we are seeing that role changing, as you say, and I think people often don't associate accountants with fun in those two terms, but absolutely, it's creating these new exciting roles, and we're seeing that in the breakup of our CPA Australia membership too. We have members working in all sorts of roles around data interpretation, capacity optimisation, business advisory, and it is fun, and it's out there, it's looking forward, it's dealing with new technology, it's dealing with climate change, it's dealing with all sorts of wider business issues, and accountants play a key role, because at the end of the day, accounting and finance competencies are still fundamental to all these roles. So we're always going to need accounting, and when we talk to young people looking at careers, some people don't realise just how important accounting and finance skills are in all these roles. So, it's never been more important, but it's just what they do and how they do it is evolving, but it is fun and it's exciting.
And what's happening with the actual numbers of accountants? Are the numbers growing? And I guess importantly for you at CPA, your membership as well. I mean, are the numbers falling, growing? How's it going?
It's really interesting. You might look back at that 2017 moment with Nigel Latta and think, gosh, are we members going to suddenly, we're going to lose members? But our overall CPA membership has grown sort of 30% in the last 5 years. So our membership's growing really strongly, which is great. There are some challenges around high school students and the perception of accounting. University accounting specific graduates are declining, but what we're seeing is that replaced often by adjacent disciplines such as finance and economics. Those pathways are strong. So the traditional, so we are seeing new entrants and new pathways into CPA membership. Not just through traditional accounting. So there are some challenges in terms of our students coming out of the high school system wanting to choose accounting as a study pathway, and numbers are certainly challenged at many universities in terms of those accounting majors, but there are other majors that are adjacent to that and very similar. So we are seeing our membership growing, but the traditional accounting pathway into that membership is changing, and we are seeing adjacent pathways such as finance and economics, for example, moving into that CPA membership. So numbers are really strong, but the pathway into that membership is evolving. Can you give us any specifics on numbers, I guess, across the profession, but also for your CPA membership? Yeah, so our members are around 2,900 currently. But as I said, and that's a makeup of fully qualified accountants, people going through a pathway. In terms of the numbers of students, we don't have specific numbers of enrolments, and so we have sort of wider business school enrolments at a large university, for example, who study a first year major might be sort of 1,000 to 1,500, and then they'll obviously then choose their major study pathway, whether it's accounting or finance, and so coming out of a university might be 200 or 300. Accounting majors, and those are the numbers that are dropping. So, but in terms of CPA, we have 170,000 global members, and that number's growing all the time. But it's really the makeup of that member is not just your traditional accounting student per se. So, and numbers are changing all the time. But there is a worry at that high school level where accounting has been taken out of NCEA Level 1 curriculum. That are people being turned off, and there's still that big stereotype issue we have to deal with. Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk about how you do that, especially at that school level. I mean, how do you try to make accounting appealing to teenagers? Look, it is tough, and because we look at who are the influencers, and it's not only it's teachers, it's mums and dads as well. So someone might talk to their parents and say, Mum, what do you think about accounting? Oh, don't do that because it's boring, or there's no jobs there, or it's going to be automated. So there's a number of different influences we need to talk to. And we're talking to our members around, but they have children looking at studying, what are they studying and why are they studying that? We're starting to work with high schools as well, and we go into high schools, and our members go into high schools as well and talk about what it means to be an accountant, and that, and talking about that fun, exciting thing, and that accountants play a role in all sorts of organisations. It's a global profession, so you actually can take that anywhere. Every company in every country needs accountants. So it's telling those stories, but it is challenging because young people are influenced from different people, and so we have to work with all of those. But we are going door to door to many high schools and talking to the students around what an accountant does and what it means. And we're working with wider high school industry bodies as well.
And what sort of feedback are you getting from the schools? It's interesting you said with accounting not being in NCEA level 1 anymore. How big of a problem is that for the profession?
It is a challenge, and it's moving to more a wider business, sort of a business curriculum, which in a way is not too bad because CPA Australia has a wide business focus, not just traditional accounting, but it does then challenge that first year university level and the accounting faculties who we work very closely with and accredit the accounting programs at the universities. So it is a challenge. The work we do at university at first year level is really, really important as well. When students are looking at where they go in second year, for us to be talking about what accountants do, and again, that education piece there is hugely important, and that myth busting often around what accountants do and pathways and opportunities. So we also use our members to come and talk to students at high school, and I said, and university and high school, as I mentioned, around what they do for a job. And you can see it really opens people's eyes. They go, oh, okay, that's not quite what I thought. And in a positive way, that sounds really cool. And you're going places, you can do various roles. You're communicating with people. You're not stuck behind that desk just looking at spreadsheets and not talk to anyone, and you can take it globally. So it's a big job, and we're not there yet, but it's really exciting, and we need to tell that story.
Young people, obviously, you're talking about attracting them to the industry. Every generation that comes along is obviously slightly different, but ultimately I think we end up in similar places. But I guess at the moment you've got the young people coming through, they're digital natives. They have grown up in an era where there's a lot of concern about climate change. I'm thinking here, I was talking to my nephew the other day. I mean, they're very worried about housing and even flatting. It can be hard to even find a flat these days. So they've got all these things that they worry about. I mean, where does accounting fit in with this generation?
It's really interesting, and we talk to a huge number of employers, and even this week I've met with 3 or 4, and when they're looking at recruiting, the changing nature and sort of thought process of young people, it is very different. In the old days, you'd go to an organisation and you'd work there for 3 or 4 years or 5. You might even go to a big accounting firm and do your professional pathway for over 3 years, and then you'd travel overseas. And we're finding that a lot of graduates aren't even doing that anymore. So they might say, look, I'll work for a year and then see what I want to do. So that longevity is not there anymore. And there's some sort of stats coming out around how in the future people will have sort of 10 different career paths and all this sort of thing. So that... And I know a lot of people say, I worked in this company for 30 years, and young people now, they're not sticking around and they're looking for these new opportunities. But, that is what it is, and that is happening. So it's meaning employers, and this is not just with accounting, it's meaning employers are having to be creative, they're having to adapt. And what else can they offer someone to keep them around? And, of course, you throw COVID into the mix with working remotely and obviously technology as well, and we've got people, you can do a job for a New Zealand company based overseas now. So it is a really challenging time for employers, but accounting as well, because you throw into that the different skill sets, and you've got accounting firms and organisations not just looking for traditional accounting skills, they're looking for these other skills as well around data, data and technology and communication and leadership and these hybrid skills, if you like. So it's a really challenging time, and when we're trying to talk about the futures of accounting, it's not just accounting as a standalone subject anymore. As I said, the fundamentals of accounting and finance are fundamental to any role, but it's these hybrid skills. So it's not only are employers looking for these different skill sets, but the actual people they are recruiting are looking at different things themselves as well. There's a lot of people looking at entrepreneurship type opportunities. They're looking at what's going to give them that flexibility, that enjoyment, allow them to do more things for themselves rather than I need to stick at this role for 10 years and then I go to this role and this role all in the field of accountancy or what have you. So it's a lot of challenges for employers and for the accounting profession. But as I said, one of my roles is A, obviously support our members, and B, talk about these positive opportunities that are out there.
Are the bigger firms, are they not attracting as many people? I mean, I guess that you talk about the traditional career path, starting on the bottom rung at a big firm and working your way up. Is it more challenging for those big firms to attract people in now, or are they still managing to?
Look, still, the demand is still really bring from these large firms. It is challenging at the moment, and because you also throw COVID in and the number of people who are moving overseas and doing different things. So they are still attracting numbers. Some of them are struggling to get the numbers they need. And the other thing that's happening, obviously, with a lot of their employees heading offshore is obviously the migrants used to come in and fill a lot of those mid-level type of roles as well. So there is a challenge in numbers, but they are looking at various roles. So consulting divisions within big firms are looking for not just at traditional accounting skills. They might be looking at engineers, management majors, finance and economics, even arts. So depending on the role. And so it's the makeup of that graduate that is changing. So big firms and employers are casting their net wider often now, not just to your traditional accounting faculty. They're looking at these wider skill sets.
Yeah, I remember hearing not long ago about there being a shortage of auditors in New Zealand, for example. And it is obviously, as you say, it's a skill set you can take to other countries. So, I mean, how attractive is New Zealand at the moment for the accounting profession if you are trying to bring people in here?
Look, it is a challenge at the moment, and a number of auditors came in last year and are still coming in on a specific employer visa, but there's not enough at the moment. That is a real challenge. And so, New Zealand and the world needs more auditors, and that is a real challenge. And a lot of those auditors do need to come in from offshore. So in terms of New Zealand's attractiveness, again, a lot of that, COVID's obviously played a huge role in all of this, and there's a lot of media around migration settings, and the government needs to be potentially doing more to bring in auditors. You could say that for a huge number of occupations, I suppose. So auditing it's a fundamental function of an organisation. So, without them, organisations can't do what they need to do. So there is a real challenge around auditing. It does rely on a lot of people to work together, and that's professional bodies, it's employers, it's government in particular. So there are some headwinds there in the auditing space in particular. But as I said, we're not alone in that.
And what about the middle-aged and older people in the profession? Change is a constant, I think, that we're always dealing with. But with all the sort of automation moves, and you're talking about, I guess, people from different backgrounds coming in, engineering, you even mentioned arts. I guess these people bring a slightly or perhaps even a completely different perspective to the profession when they come in. So how are the older people coping?
Look, the older people are coping well. We've got members of all generations, but what we're finding is that members are needing to upskill quickly these days. So the old days of you do a 3-year professional qualification and then off you go, and members have to do their professional development hours, and that's a huge key role we play is in making sure our members are upskilling. But what we're finding is that members and the profession, they're needing to upskill quickly. So whether that's someone in their 50s or whether it's someone in their 20s. So a lot of what we've been doing behind the scenes is coming up with professional development options that allow people to do this. So we've introduced a series of micro-credentials in digital finance and sustainability and finance business partnering, which allows people who are potentially fully qualified and working away to upskill quickly to make sure they remain relevant, because that relevancy term is a huge, being relevant is critical. So old people, as you say, they might have some gripes and say that it's not what it was in my day, like my parents do. But we are working really hard to make sure we help them remain relevant, and these new products such as micro-credentials and short courses and things are a way of doing that.
Obviously, other professions and other jobs face the same challenges. I mean, as an industry body, do you talk with them, work with any of the others?
Yeah, look, we're very open. We do, probably not as much as we should do, to be honest. But when we look at things like climate change and things coming ahead, that's not just the accounting role plays a big role in that, but so does engineers and others as well. So there's going to be more and more of that in the future. And we're looking, our new corporate strategy at CPA Australia is looking at partnerships and how do we work with other organisations, other bodies, other professions in the best interests of the profession and our members. So there has been some collaboration, but there's certainly a lot more that we can do and certainly planning to do.
Yeah, there's climate reporting standards coming in, aren't there? So that must be a big issue for the profession.
Huge. And you just look on the news every night at what's happening in the world, around the world, and in the media locally as well. So that is a big, huge thing, and we all know it's coming. It's quite scary. With the climate reporting standards coming out, New Zealand is well ahead of many other countries in that space, and accountants and finance professionals will play a key role in that, because obviously finance implications and financial implications of climate change are enormous, and that's a big focus for us looking forward.
And what about, we talk about technology as a threat, but you've also noted that it does create some opportunities. Are there any particular technological developments that you think are, creating opportunities in the profession?
Yeah, there's a huge number, but even just look at the communication technologies, and that's again not just for accounting, but the way people communicate. The advancements that Xero's had and what Xero continues to bring out, for example, allows accountants to again focus on these other issues. So the days of just focusing on a client's and organising a client's tax returns, those days are, that's where the automation and technology piece comes into play. So the advent of Xero, artificial intelligence, automation, where the access to reports and real-time data is allowing people to say, for an accountant to go to on a client and say, this is a snapshot now, this is what it might look like moving forward, and talk about that forward, the forward-looking piece, rather than just saying, this is what's happened in the last 12 months. So it's that access to data, and real-time data is a key piece that's allowing accountants to focus on other value-added business. And so that's where we're seeing the nature and the role of the accountant really evolve. But the skill set needs to evolve with it, and that's a big role that we play in helping making sure our members are at the forefront of that.
So Rick, one thing that's interesting, with some professions you might qualify in that profession in New Zealand, but those qualifications may not be recognised in other countries around the world. And you talk about accounting being an international, global profession. If I qualify as an accountant in New Zealand, how transferable is that qualification to other countries around the world if I want to go and live overseas? Very
transferable. And the great thing about accounting, as I said, you can take it anywhere, and the skills are transferable. There's global accounting standards. If you move to a different jurisdiction, you might need to upskill on the local tax rules and tax law, and there might be some further study. But otherwise, we have over 20 offices around the world where our members can move to any of those countries as a CPA Australia member and continue to work as normal. So, as I said, where it becomes more country-specific might be around tax law, where our members would need to upskill. But otherwise, they can take that role and be a professional accountant as they are in any country.
I guess, and possibly they might need to know another language depending on where they go in the world.
That's right, absolutely. That might be the other one. We don't offer that as part of our professional development, but that's, again, we're very lucky we have these local offices where, and from a CPA world, where we put our members in touch with and can support. But that is a key selling point around the global nature of the profession.
Just to wrap up, Rick, let's just pretend I'm a 18-year-old and I'm thinking about a career in accounting, but I'm not really sure. What's your sales pitch?
The sales pitch is accounting is a profession that is global. It allows you to literally, every organisation in the world needs people with accounting and finance skills. And so it's very relevant in the sense that, accountants have a role to play in technology and climate change. It's exciting, and it's around talking to people. It's around engagement and communicating and helping people. That's what accountants do. So it's really fun. It's not like what you might think is a stereotypical accountant. It can take you anywhere. It's fun. It pays well, and it's always going to be in demand.
Well, look, thanks a lot for that, Rick. That's Rick Jones, who's the New Zealand country head for accounting industry body CPA Australia. And this has been another episode of interest.co.nz's Of Interest podcast, and I'm Gareth Vaughan.